Hey guys, welcome to the shop. I've been thinking about this angle plate pointer, physical, whatever you want to call it, for 2 weeks. How am I gonna, accurately scribe my lines on it? How do I want it to fit this angle plate? Because it's a fairly complex piece, So I'm gonna build it out of something easy. PVC. I can build a prototype. I can see if it fits. And then later I can make it out of something better. So let's go in the shop and get started. Alright guys, most of you are well aware of what this is. This is our indexing angle plate. Most angle plates are just a solid piece of cast iron that's at 90 degrees. You bolt your work to the face of it and that's it. That's all you can do. This is an indexing angle plate. And we've been making this on video now for probably a month or better. We bored out our casting, we made our slug, we put our array of bolt holes in it, and we also made the indexing ring, or the ring that has the marks on it, the index marks. And we trepanned this out on the lathe, this diameter, and then we scribed each one of these 360 marks with the big shaper here. Now that was quite a job, and it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. It was a really neat setup, and I'm glad I got it on video, and I'm glad you guys got to see it. It was, a learning experience for me. But, the learning never stops. I'm no experienced tool maker, and this has all been an exercise for me. But we've only got half of it done. I've got my marks here, but I have nothing to reference them off of. I need to put a pointer, or a physical, or whatever you want to call it. There is a technical term for it, but I don't know exactly how to pronounce it. But we need to make that pointer. And I want it to look somewhat ornate. I don't want just a flat piece of brass here. I think that's, that's taking the easy way out. And I also want to break a degree up into quarters. Now, I've never made one of those before, so it's quite the mental exercise for me of figuring out how to scribe those lines, where they're easily readable, and accurate. But I think I've got it figured out. I think I know the shape that I want. This is far too wide, but I think I know the shape that I want. And I'm going to show you how I did it. I'm really at the extent of my work holding abilities with the stuff, or with the tools that I got over on the milling machine. So I'm going to take you over there, and I'm going to show you how I made a prototype. Alright guys, here we are on the milling machine, and this is a fairly cobbled setup, but it's what I have. So I don't have a nice toolmaker's vise to mount to this. I do have a small milling machine vise that's fairly accurate. And this pointer is going to have a lot of handwork anyway, so it's not really going to matter in the end. So we have mounted the vise to where, with our work clamped in it, the center of our work is directly in line with the center of the spindle. This vise is parallel with the X movement of the table, or right to left. And I want to set this up just like I got a little piece here that I cut. This has got a radius of 3.05. And this is the same 3.05 radius at 25 degrees. I want to set this up to cut this 3.05 radius at 25 degrees. And what I did is I just took a piece of stock, held it in my vise here, used my angle, and set it up like this. That way, my part is held at 25 degrees, or at least really close enough, because like I said, this is going to be a lot of handwork on this pointer, getting it to the final shape by hand and centering it and whatnot. So I'm not too concerned about it. But I do want my radius to be correct and my angle to be correct. Okay, the rest I can work with. So put our cutter in. Now this is a 3/8 cutter, and we need to offset this rotary table. And the way that I do it quick and easy, and I know that I need to offset this, rotary table to get our, 3.05 3.05 degree radius is 3.05 from the center of the rotation of the spindle, and we have to account for half of our, have to either count for or subtract from, or add half of our cutter depending on which side of the work we want to keep. So the way that I do it, and I'll show you, is to take my calipers. Now, this is a quick and easy, the way I do them, you know, quick math. So we know we want 3.05. So we go down to 3.05 and we zero it. Now we want to subtract half of our cutter, so it'd be 187 or 0.187. .1875. If we can hit it, there we go. Oh, okay, there we go. And zero it, and then when we close it, there's our offset. We want our rotary table to move away from that cutter 2.8625. That will give us our radius of 3.05. Plus we got it set up at our 25-degree angle. So I'm going to put my extra clamp on here. I just took it off so you could see what I'm doing. And then I'll show you how I machine it and how I plan to scribe the marks on it. Alright guys, we've got our piece, you know, secured in the vise. And the vise, you know, none of this of course is ideal. This is a pretty, you know, ghetto setup, to be honest. But, you know, we got our cutter hanging out real far. We got a 4-flute, you know, on a piece of plastic, which we should probably be using a 2. You know, we got these big old bulky clamps, but it's what we got, so it's what we're going to use. I also have to cut this part, you know, really upside down. You know, it's the only way I can get the radius that I need. I'm really at the extremes of this rotary table. This is just a 10-inch, and, you know, we're doing the best we can with what we have, but I think it's going to work out just fine, and we're just doing a proof of concept anyway, so so that's the deal. So I'm going to get this guy cutting, and well, let me refine this a little more. See, I just used my 25-degree angle. I think I showed you this. Set it in the vise here. My big arm in the way. Just got to do our best to get it set up as properly as we can. You know, and this is just, like I said, proof of concept. And I plan to probably do this, you know, with the original piece, or with the actual piece, but we'll see. So let's cut this radius, and then I'll show you how I scribe my lines. Come in to the cutter about 1/1000th or so just to clean this up. And hopefully it does. Alright, good enough. Now let's get set up and I'll show you how I'm going to scribe this guy. Alright guys, here is the tool that I'm going to use to scribe on, you know, this plastic piece right now, but it's also going to be my tool to scribe on my, you know, brass piece. I believe it'll be brass, maybe bronze. I've got both materials, so we'll see. But all it is a 3/8 boring bar with a carbide, you know, piece of round carbide in it. And I have ground it at a 60-degree angle and relieved it properly to where I can take the quill and come down and scribe my lines on this piece. And I just set this up in the quill and then lock it down and then lock the brake on the quill, that way it can't rotate. And then I just run my quill up and down every time I want to mark. I can choose how long I want my marks by adjusting the you know, the stop on the quill, and it works actually pretty well. So I'm going to get you back a little bit, show you the setup, and then I'll bring you in close and we'll scribe the lines. Alright, here's our bar, and I'm going to slide it in our spindle here. Now I've already went through all the trouble of making sure that this bar is, you know, or that the scribe sticks out the proper amount that it should. That way I don't have to move the rotary table in order to scribe my lines and, you know, and get some lines deeper than the other. So I just lock it in the quill and make sure that it's straight, as straight as I can get it. And then I lock my brake on my quill, and I just use a, you know, piece of wire or string, you know, in order to keep it stationary, because I don't want it rotating. That would mess me up big time. I'm sure I could probably find a way to set this up on the shaper to do this, but I think it's pretty neat to be able to do it on the you know, on the milling machine too. I've seen people do stuff like this before on them. I just had never up until this point. And I'm going to set my mag base. I don't have a digital readout, so I'm going to set my mag base on, you know, my saddle of the milling machine. That way I can move out a little bit and then come in to my lines. I know where my zero is. So I am going to move this out a bit. Now I've got my rotary table zeroed and locked, and I want this will be my zero line. Now when I do this originally, I'll start from one extreme and go all the way across. That way I don't have to reverse directions, but you get the idea. So I've got my rotary table zeroed and locked. I've got it moved about 10 thousandths out away from the cutter just so I can, you know, get everything set up and it won't hit. Okay, and then the first mark will be all the way through. It'll be my zero, so I'll move this table back in about 10 or 12 thousandths. So we shouldn't make too deep of a line, and make my first line. And it really does a pretty good job. I don't know exactly how it'll do on, you know, our final material, but we'll see. That'll be pretty interesting. Okay. And we've got our zero line, which will be all, you know, the long line. And now I just want to go halfway through. Lock there. Okay, let me bring in close. Alright, there's our line that we just made. Now this is our zero mark. Now if we want to make our 1/4 degree marks, we're going to have to go off of this mark 1 degree and 1/4. So move my rotary table 1 degree in 15 minutes. Lock it. And scribe my line. Now keep in mind, I had never done this before, so this is definitely a learning experience. Get the burr off of it. And now we want to go 1.5 degrees or 30 seconds. Lock our rotary table and scribe our line. Now this took some figuring out for me, even though it's fairly obvious now that I know how to do it, but it wasn't obvious in the beginning. Okay, now we got to go 1 degree, and every time we go a degree we add a quarter. So that way, you know, it's kind of hard to explain, but that way, you know, each actual degree on our ring will be used as a, you know, lineup, you know, will be used to line up with these extra marks to determine, you know, for every quarter degree. And our final mark on this side of the 0. And then we do the same thing, you know, on the other side. So that's pretty cool, and it's pretty neat, and I'm really surprised at how it's worked out so far. And I think if I do my part and I've removed one of these clamps, of course, just so you can see well, but on the final product, I think if I do my part, I can really make the lines look really nice and get a good product. Let's go set all this up on the angle plate and look at it. Alright, you guys seen how I scribed the lines, how I got my radius and my angle. Kind of a janky setup, but I think it'll be just fine. You know, we'll have to just be really careful when we work with a harder material, you know, and we'll have to go real slow. But here's one that I made, you know, a prototype that I made, you know, a little earlier. And this one has one extra mark on each side. You know, one more mark than I need for quarter degree spacing. But you get the idea. And you can kind of see that. It's really not easy to get on camera. But this will allow me to break a degree up into 4 pieces. And it seems to be, you know, really nice. It's easy to see for me, you know, by eye. You know, and it'll be real nice when it's on, you know, a piece of brass or bronze and it's colored in, you know, has some color feel in it. You know, I've been, you know, none of this stuff is finished. You know, I've got Dykem in my lines here, and it's all rough, but it's going to be nice when it's finished. But now we need to work on the external, you know, shape of this thing. What do we want it to look like? And I still don't have a really good idea what I'm going to do as far as its external shape. But let's put this in the shaper. You know, I've already shaped this side down a little bit. Let's bring this side down a little more. Thin this guy out on both sides. Set it up here and then get a little better idea of what it'll look like. Alright, we've got our, you know, pointer prototype in here. And we've got a you know, 1/8 inch radius tool, basically with 0 rake. I've machined PVC or plastic, you know, a couple times, and it is really grabby, and if you got much rake on the tool, it'll pull it right out of the vise or dig in. And so there's really no rake on this tool. It's basically flat, you know, no rake, you know, and round radius. So let's see what kind of finish we can get on it. From what I've seen, you know, it looks pretty good. And I want to bring this down right to this first mark here, and then we'll flip it and do the other side. We're going to 0 it first. We're going to 20 thousandths per stroke and go 40 thousandths deep. Dial in 40. We're at 64 strokes a minute, which is slow for plastic, but I'm in no real big hurry. The tool is really sharp, and I think that helps. I just don't want to take too big of a bite and pull this thing out of the vise. I don't want to mess it up. Alright, I've got one side of this work down. I'm going to flip this over, work down the other side, then we'll go over the angle plate and we'll see what it looks like and decide what we want to do, you know, from this point on. Alright, we have shaped down both sides, and you know, it fits the width of this webbing really well, and you know, by eye I can see the lines extremely well. I think it, you know, I like the way it comes up to the face. You know, both the radiuses are the same, and the line spacing's correct. It's just this isn't very appealing. You know, it's got a hole in it. This was just a piece of scrap, like I said, the scrap pile. But it doesn't look very appealing, really. You know, just a rectangle, basically. So I need to do something to it to make it, you know, a little more ornate, you know. And I'm thinking that I'm going to put another 25-degree angle from here down to here. Make this look like the back sight of a rifle, maybe. You know, something like that, or the front, you know, sight. And I think that, you know, that may help. I don't know, you know, if any of you guys have any good ideas on what I should do to something like this to make it, you know, more appealing to the eye. Let me know. You know, I plan to do some handwork on it, maybe, you know, rounding some of the edges. You know, once I get, I was thinking once I get the angle on it, you know, this hole is going to be right in the way. It'll come cut right through that hole. But I was thinking, you know, I would maybe by hand, you know, round these two top edges here and here, you know, once I get the angle. So, you know, we'll see, you know. But first, you know, we need to put that angle on there. And I'm not exactly for sure how I'm going to do that, so I'm going to get you back at a better angle, and we're going to try this with the shaper and see how it turns out. Alright guys, now I'm going to try to cut this 25-degree angle on the shaper. You know, I've got the tilting shaper table, which most of you guys have seen, and it works really well. It's just kind of a, you know, it's a lot of, you know, setup and stuff to do. So the first thing you have to do to move this table, to tilt this big vise and stuff, you got to loosen, there's two bolts right here on the side. Loosen those. These are what lock it. The swiveling portion this way. And then grab your handle. And I'm going to move this table to its maximum tilt, which is 15 degrees. And it ain't got to be exactly perfect, you know, we're just going to line this up by eye as best as we can. And that gets us pretty dang close, to be honest. I mean, this thing's pretty accurate. Okay, we're at 15 degrees tilt. So now we need to lock this down. Okay, now we're only 15, but we want 25, so we've got a big parallel in the vise here, you know, just to hold our work from the bottom, because this vise is, I think it's 4 inches deep, and most of your parallels, you know, for your milling machine and stuff won't work. So I got a tall one in there, and I got to actually add a little one from a milling machine, you know, to get me up a little higher. I believe I'm going to have to. And I've also got one of the, this is a 10-degree angle, so 15, 10, you know, 25. So if we add these angles together, it'll give us our 25 degrees. And I'm going to use it to gauge, you know, the cut on my pointer. And it's kind of going to be hanging out of the vise. I'll get this backwards. That wouldn't be good. But we want to get as much bite on it as we can. And still have it all, you know, still have everything line up and work. And we want to work on this back side of the vise because of the way that the shaper works. We would run our cutter into our vise, and we don't want that. Alright, so that, as long as everything's seated well, should give us our 25 degrees. It's kind of like a balancing act here. And it ain't gotta be perfect, you know, we want it close. This ain't, you know, going to be going on an inspection table or anything at NASA, so we're not too concerned about it, but we do want it to be pretty close. Alright, I think that's got it. Really close. I'll take it. So we've moved our, you know, ram back out of the way so we can work. Tool post in. Our T-bolt or spacer. These things are nice, you know. That way you ain't gotta, you know, run this big bolt in, you know, so far, and having one of these, you know, won't fall through, and it puts even pressure on the piece of tool steel. You know, instead of just one bolt running in on the piece, that big T-bolt, you know, presses against the whole piece, so it really spreads the pressure out on the cutter, and it's nice. I had, you know, I made this one. I had seen it in some magazines before, and you know, and I'm glad I built it. You know, it's really nice. Alright, now plop down our cutter. This is the same cutter that I used before, just a 1/8 inch radius, you know, no rake. And we need to get it going and adjust our stroke. We want about 3.5 inch stroke. I'll just go with 4 inch stroke. Let's see where the stroke is on this machine right now. Start our phase converter. Start the shaper. We're going to slow the stroke down just for starting. Just to see where we're at. I run it out to its maximum and stop it, and then I set it out to the end. I think that'll do it. Back a little far, smooth it out a little farther. Alright. Lock our up and down movement. Touching, say 50. Speed this guy up. I think that should be 94 strokes a minute. Take it 20 thousandths per stroke. Bring it over to it touches. Let me bring it a little closer. Start the cut. We're just going to chip away at this guy. Oh, hit the camera. Until we get our desired depth. Okay. Right. 50 more. Well, I ran into a little problem. Not necessarily a problem, more, it wasn't turning out the look that I want. After I, stopped filming, I just made one more cut and got to looking at it. And even though what we're doing is what I wanted, I took it off here and I set it on the angle plate. And this angle here, this 25 degrees, even though while this is on the angle plate and the angle plate's sitting flat, this would give us a 90 degree to the foot. And even though it would do that, it would make this too short, if I was to try to bring it up to this upper edge like I wanted. And I want to keep to where I can put 2 bolts in this thing and it still, have some length to it. I think it'll look better if it's a little longer, kind of spread out on that web. And that's why, I'm making a prototype so I can flesh these problems out, in the beginning. Because I don't have, material to waste. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this vise back down parallel, basically zero it out. And I'm going to set this up on an angle in the vise jaws. This piece is just too short for me to, even though this is at the this is at 15 degrees, which is probably what I'll end up cutting this now that I've thought about it a little more. You know, even though this table right now is at 15 degrees, I can't, with this thing being as short as it is, cut that 15 degrees without eventually running into the vise before I get it cut down to the shape that I want. So I'm going to have to set this vise vertical. I'm going to have to set this vise, you know, just horizontal, and then set this part up on a precision angle, you know, at 15 degrees and try to cut it that way. That's what I'm going to try. I'm going to get this table back down, and I'll bring you back when I'm setting it up. Alright, now this is more what I wanted. And this was an easier way to do it. I don't know why I didn't do it like this from the beginning. But, like I said, that's why we're doing a prototype, and, you know, so we can flesh these setup issues out, you know, as we go. You know, this kind of stuff goes slow. For me it does. So I'm going to bring you in a little closer, and we're going to cut this guy down, and then we'll go look at it on the angle plate and see what it looks like. Now let's go check this out on the angle plate. Well, here's what we have so far. You know, I wouldn't call it complete by any means, or perfect, but it's coming, you know, getting to the shape that I kind of want. You know, this is definitely not 90 degrees with the foot, but you know, I like the slope on it. You know, it gives me plenty of room to put 2 bolts, and I have enough room to leave a little wiggle room for, you know, adjustment if I want it. And I really think the function of this is really good, you know, given that I can look at it straight on or, you know, from above and still see the marks really clearly. You know, you can't, you know, not on video anyway, see it, but I really like that. You know, it's gonna work real good. You know, I don't know about how well it's gonna look when this is brass and stuff. I think brass or you know similar metal. I think it'll really pop and you know, look, you know, much better. But you know, this is the basic shape that I'm going for, and it's been a lot of work up to this point. You know, a lot of different you know, setups and a lot of you know, stuff that I've never done before. And those little precision angles, you know, quote, you know, precision angles, have really come in handy. I've used those things, you know, several times, and I'm really glad I got them. You know, I wish I had a, you know, better set, but I'm really glad I got them. Let me get you a little different angle at this. Can you see those lines? You know, I can see them just fine by eye, but on camera they're a little, you know, a little fuzzy. But I think the end product's really going to be nice. You know, it allows us to break a degree up into quarters, and you know, I'm not crazy about the shape, but I think we can refine that, you know, with time. And of course, when it's, you know, brass or a similar metal, it'll look much better and stand out. You know, when we get our lines color filled in, and this is going to allow us, you know, plenty of room to get 2, you know, bolts in it or screws to fasten it securely to the web here, and maybe leave us a little room for, you know, side to side adjustment if we happen to need it. But yeah, you know, coming along real nicely. A lot of work though, sure is a lot of work. I'm glad I got those little precision angles. Those things have come in pretty handy so far. You know, really, you know, even though the ones I got are cheap, I'm glad I have them. Well guys, that about does it for this week. That sure has been a lot of work. Even though it's such a simple little item, you know, to come up with, you know, to think out, to figure out the lines, you know, to think up a shape that I want, you know, to get all the tools necessary with my janky mill setup to cut the angles that I want. Took some time, and it was an exercise, let's just say that. And I'm glad I done it, and I'm glad I'm doing a prototype. That way, you know, I don't risk messing up, you know, a final product, because there's a lot of work in something like this. You know, as simple as a you know, reference marker, pointer, whatever you want to call it. So that about does it. I really appreciate you watching, guys. I really appreciate all my, you know, friends in the comments. If you haven't, hit my little guy up here to subscribe to the channel. Click on the bell in the upper right hand corner for notifications. And as always, I'll see you next time.